Friday was not supposed to go this way. I was at a gas station on I-94, halfway to a conference I had zero interest in, when my phone buzzed with an email. Event canceled due to data breach. We apologized for the inconvenience. Just like that, I had my weekend back. And in that exact moment, without thinking twice, I made the decision to turn the car around. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I had this foolish, oddly satisfying idea of surprising her. I stopped at a florist 2 blocks from our neighborhood and bought a bouquet of orange lilies. She once told me they reminded her of the ones from her grandmother's garden. I even asked the florist to wrap them in brown paper because I thought it looked more organic. I wanted to make her smile. That's how far gone I was. I pulled into the driveway just after 4. Her car was parked outside, but the lights were off, which was weird. She usually turns on everything like the house is afraid of the dark. As I approached the door, I heard voices. Not raised, not urgent, but too deliberate. The kind of quiet conversation that doesn't want an audience. I stepped in and heard her laugh. Not the version she used with me, soft and spontaneous, but a sharper one, practiced and purposeful. It came from the kitchen, followed by the unmistakable click of a laptop closing. I walked in with the flowers behind my back, still thinking maybe this was something innocent. A cousin visiting. A coworker dropping off files. Something. Anything. She was leaning over the kitchen island, her phone in one hand, wine glass in the other. Her eyes met mine, and for half a second, her face did something strange. It wasn't shock or guilt, it was irritation. Like I had just walked into the wrong meeting. There was no greeting. No, hey, you're home early. Just a half smile that didn't touch her eyes and a casual, thought you had a flight? Before I could answer, a soft ping came from her laptop. Not from a messaging app, but from a calendar reminder. She reached to silence it, but not fast enough. The screen flashed a notification. Weekend trip, Brent. Pickup, 5 p.m. Rental from city office. I set the flowers down on the counter. No words, just looked at her. She didn't flinch. Instead, she turned the laptop toward her and said, "Don't make this a thing." That phrase, I still feel it in my teeth. Like I bit down on a piece of glass. I walked around the island and opened the laptop. She stepped aside. Not in surrender, but in that passive-aggressive way that says, "Go ahead. Make yourself look stupid." The screen was already unlocked. Calendar, email, open tabs. One was a Google Doc. I clicked it, and there it was. A full itinerary. Flights, restaurant reservations, a villa booked under her maiden name, and notes. Real notes. Inside jokes and references I didn't understand. A beach playlist. A packing list that included 2 swimsuits, a silk robe, and a separate line. "Don't forget Brent's favorite cologne. He's obsessed with that smell." My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I just stood there and said, "You've been planning this. This isn't new." She took a long sip of wine. No denial. No apology. Just shrugged and said, "You were never supposed to see that. You weren't supposed to be here." And then, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed in the mirror a dozen times, she added, "We were already done. You just didn't want to admit it." Something shifted in my chest. Not heartbreak. Not anger. Something colder. Like a floor giving out under me. I asked her who Brent was. She laughed again. That new laugh. Said, "It doesn't matter. He's someone who actually listens. Someone who makes me feel like I'm not walking on eggshells." That one hit me hard. Because if anyone was careful in this marriage, it was me. I watched my words. I stayed late at work so she could go to yoga. I missed my dad's birthday to fly with her to her sister's engagement in Arizona. I gave. I compromised. I adjusted. All so she could feel free. I didn't speak again. I just took my phone out, stepped back, and started taking pictures of the screen. The itinerary. The emails. The text messages she hadn't closed out. That's when she finally reacted. "What are you doing?" Her tone turned sharp, her body tense. I said, "Gathering evidence." She reached for the laptop. I held it away from her. We stood there for a second, not touching, not blinking. And that's when I realized. She wasn't afraid of what this would do to our marriage. She was afraid of what it would do to her job. That was the first time I realized this went beyond a fling. There was a whole structure behind it. Office resources, company accounts. Even the car rental was billed to a department code I recognized, and I don't even work in her department. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You didn't just cheat on me. You pulled other people into this. This is corporate fraud." And her face, that's when it changed. Not fear, not shame, just calculation, like she was already planning the spin. I left without another word. What she didn't know is I was already drafting an email. Not to her lover, to his wife, to HR, to legal, to every single person whose signature appeared on those itinerary confirmations. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a campaign. And I was going to burn it down piece by piece. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of heartbreak. That part hadn't even hit me yet. It was the rage that kept me wired. The quiet, controlled kind. I sat in the den with the lights off, just the glow of my monitor lighting the room as I combed through every detail I'd copied from her laptop. Every timestamp, every receipt, every forwarded email chain where her name sat proudly next to office project codes, travel allowances, and expense reports for team-building weekends that were really romantic hideouts under aliases. The more I dug, the more I found. This wasn't a one-off. This was a long-running side operation. And she wasn't even being that careful. That's what got me the audacity. The way she carried on like nothing could touch her. Like she was immune to consequence. I found a folder in her cloud drive labeled Q3 Initiatives. Inside were PDFs and spreadsheets. The kind of boring corporate stuff no one checks twice. But buried in one spreadsheet was a column hidden past the others with initials, dates, and dollar amounts. Multiple names. Multiple trips. I clicked one row and followed a trail to a reservation made under a colleague's name, the same colleague who was let go 2 months ago for underperformance. I began writing emails. Methodical. Clear. No drama. Just facts and attachments. I sent one to her company's internal audit department, another to her direct supervisor. And then I debated this one. I sent an email to Brent's wife. Her name was in one of the forwarded confirmations, listed as the emergency contact for a flight. I found her on LinkedIn, then Facebook, then her professional website, where her contact form was wide open. I didn't write paragraphs. I sent her 3 files. One PDF of the itinerary, one screenshot of the messages, and one short line. "You deserve to know." At 6:43 a.m., I hit send. By 8 a.m., the explosion began. First, a call from her. I didn't answer. Then another. Then a text. "What did you do?" I muted her. At 9:14 a.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up. It was her boss. He asked politely if I could speak. I told him I'd only speak on record and by email. He said he understood. By noon, her office had imploded. 3 people placed on immediate suspension. 2 more under internal review. Apparently, this wasn't just a fling, it was a whole inner circle. Favoritism. Falsified reports. Misuse of travel budgets. She hadn't just crossed a line, she'd built a highway over it. That evening, she came home. I was on the porch. She walked up like someone arriving to her own intervention, composed but dangerous. "I need to talk," she said. I didn't move. "You should get a lawyer." "You think you're clever?" she snapped. "You think you won?" That got me. I stood and looked her in the eye. "This wasn't a game," I said. "You made it one the moment you used company funds to run your little escape plan." She laughed, a short, ugly sound. "You're pathetic." I stepped down the porch stairs and walked past her. Not toward her. Past her. I got in my car. "I'll ruin you," she called after me. I rolled down the window. "Too late," I said. "You did that to yourself." And I drove off. She still didn't understand. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about exposure. And she was about to find out what it's like to have your double life dragged into daylight. By the time the sun rose on Saturday, everything was already in motion. I didn't go back to the house. Instead, I stayed at my brother Matt's place. He lives 20 minutes away in a townhouse that still smells like paint and optimism. I didn't tell him everything, not yet, but when he saw my face and the single overnight bag I'd brought, he didn't ask much. Just handed me coffee and said, "Take the guest room." From the moment I opened my laptop, my inbox was a live wire. The HR director from her company emailed me first. She used corporate speak to try to sound calm, asking for a call to better understand the information provided and determine the scope of the issue. I forwarded them everything I hadn't sent the night before. Then I blind copied the legal department. That was the moment I stopped being the husband and became the whistleblower. I wasn't ready for what came next. At 10:31 a.m., Brent's wife responded. Her name is Melissa. Her message was exactly 5 words: "Thank you. I needed this." Attached was a screenshot of a message she'd sent to her husband. It was brutal. No accusations. Just the receipts I'd given her and one line: "Tell me everything before I burn the rest of your world." By 11 a.m., I got a call from Matt. "Bro," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "She's here." I was mid-sip of coffee when he said it. "Wait, at the house?" "No," he said. "Here. On my porch. She's asking to talk." I told him to keep the door locked and wait. Then my phone lit up. She was texting rapid fire. Half apologies, half threats. That weird limbo where someone doesn't know whether to beg or manipulate, so they try both. My favorite was, "You're ruining lives over one mistake." One mistake. Like a weekend getaway planned over 6 weeks with spreadsheets and secret aliases was the moral equivalent of buying the wrong milk. I told her to leave. She didn't. Instead, she sent me a video. I didn't want to open it, but curiosity is a disease when someone has lied to your face. It was a screen recording, a Teams meeting, recorded from her work laptop. She was talking with Brent and another man I hadn't seen before, discussing event alignment and travel logistics. But the video wasn't about work. At the 3-minute mark, the language changed. Not obviously, they were clever, using project codes and buzzwords to mask what they were really doing. But I caught it. Every time they said sync up with the client, they meant meet at the Airbnb. Every time they mentioned Q4 deliverables, it was code for a rendezvous. At one point, Brent laughed and said, "Let's just hope your guy doesn't figure out we're bleeding company hours into pleasure." And she laughed. Loud. Free. Like she didn't have a care in the world. She ended the video with a text: "This is what you wanted? Happy now?" No. I wasn't happy. I was furious. But not just with her. Because in that moment I realized something even worse. This whole time, while I was sleeping next to her, paying bills, folding laundry, dragging myself through long workdays just to keep our life together, she was building this other world. Piece by piece. Person by person. It wasn't just infidelity. It was infrastructure. I forwarded the video to her company's ethics line. Then I sent it to Melissa. Then, and this part one hesitated on, I sent it to one of the names from the hidden spreadsheet. A woman. Different department. No reason to be on a travel budget with Brent and my wife. 30 minutes later, she called me. And what she told me unraveled everything. Her name was Danielle. She spoke fast, like someone with too many thoughts trying to escape all at once. At first, she asked if this was a prank. I told her no. I explained what I'd found: the emails, the spreadsheet, the hidden tabs, the itinerary. Then I mentioned the video. Her tone changed immediately. I could hear it in her breathing. She said, "I knew something was off. I knew it." Turns out Danielle had flagged an issue with travel expenses 3 months ago. Quietly. Internally. She'd noticed weird billing overlaps, charges duplicated under different team leads, mileage that didn't line up, per diems being issued during approved vacations. She brought it to her supervisor. He told her it was probably just a reporting error. He said not to push it. But she did push it once. She submitted a formal request to audit the Q3 initiative costs. A week later, she was pulled from the project and reassigned to a desk by the printer in another wing of the building. No meetings. No feedback. Just sidelined. Her voice broke a little when she said, "They made me feel crazy." I promised to send her everything I had. When I hung up, I sat there for a moment, staring at my screen. This wasn't just about my wife and Brent anymore. This was bigger. There were layers: politics, silencing, cover-ups. And every email I sent was prying those layers apart. At 3:10 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it was from an unknown number with a local area code. I answered. The voice was older. Stern. Male. Is this Alex? Yes. This is Thomas Matheson, General Counsel for Company Name Redacted. I believe you've been communicating with various members of our staff. He didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. I said, I've provided documentation relevant to a potential misuse of corporate funds, employee misconduct, and possible retaliation against a whistleblower. There was a pause. Then he said, we've opened an internal investigation. I'd like to meet with you. Today, if possible. I agreed. We met at a neutral site, a law office downtown. When I walked into the conference room, there were already 3 people seated, Matheson, a woman from compliance, and another man I didn't recognize. They offered water. I declined. They didn't ask about my marriage. They asked about the documents, the timeline, the people. I laid it all out. I showed them what she had tried to hide. The names, the files, even the calendar events with internal access codes repurposed as a cover for non-business travel. I gave them everything. 2 hours later, I left the building with a flash drive in my pocket, a copy of the audit trail they'd started that morning. They told me this wasn't the first time someone had flagged strange behavior, but it was the first time anyone had come in with hard evidence, names, and cross-departmental confirmations. They were going to act. Quickly. When I got back to Matt's, I finally told him everything. He didn't say a word for a full minute. Then he walked to the fridge, grabbed 2 beers, and handed me one. She really tried to build an empire behind your back, he said. But you just kicked the front door in. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated. This time it was a message from Brent. Not his number. A burner. Screenshot only. You don't understand what you've started. He was right. Because the dominoes were about to fall and no one, not him, not her, had any idea how fast I was pushing them. By Sunday morning, the air was different. Not metaphorically, I mean literally. Gray sky, dead still, no breeze. The kind of morning where it feels like something is holding its breath. I hadn't slept. Again. Not because I couldn't. I just didn't want to. Sleep meant silence, and silence meant my mind would start replaying her laugh in that video. That sound was now wedged in my skull like a splinter I couldn't pull out. At 7:42 a.m. I received an email from a restricted address. No name. No subject. Just a file, preboard notes.pdf. I scanned it quickly and froze. It was an internal memo, not finalized, not signed, but it outlined concerns about covert misuse of organizational channels for personal relationships. My wife's name was in it. So was Brent's. And one more that stopped me cold. Her manager. The same guy who'd hosted our Christmas dinner 2 years in a row. He was in on it. I called Danielle. She picked up on the first ring. I asked her if she'd heard of the memo. She hadn't. I forwarded it. She went quiet. That document, it's real, she said. But it was buried. This is from a draft someone leaked before it could be reviewed. So someone's still leaking things, I said. Danielle replied. Or someone's scared now. At 9:20 a.m., my brother called from the porch. She's back. I didn't hesitate this time. I walked straight out. She stood there in full damage control mode. Neat bun, sunglasses despite the overcast sky, and a brown leather bag clutched in both hands like it contained a bomb. Can we go somewhere private? She asked. No, I said. You've had enough privacy. She inhaled through her nose a slow, practiced breath. They suspended me. I didn't respond. I don't care about that, she said. I care about us. That was her angle now? Us? There is no us, I told her. You think I was happy? She fired back suddenly. You think I wanted to sneak around? You never noticed me. You never asked me how I was doing. You booked a weekend trip with another man and called it a team-building initiative. You used fake names. You submitted expense reports for champagne and boutique spas. That's not unhappiness, that's strategy. That landed. She shifted, caught off guard. I stepped forward. And don't pretend this was just you and Brent. You were part of something bigger. Did you really think no one would connect the dots? She said nothing. Just clenched her jaw. Then I asked the question that hit her like a slap. How long have you been doing this? Her face tightened. How many people? I said. How many trips? Still silence. Or was Brent just the latest? That's when she cracked. You don't know what it's like, she snapped. You work, you pay bills, you act like that's enough, but it's not. You wanted a quiet life, and I wanted to feel alive again. And you thought burning half your office down would do that? She looked away. I already spoke to compliance, I said. And legal. And HR. You're going to be named. All of you. Brent. Your boss. And you. I will sue you, she whispered, venom low in her voice. For what? I said. For telling the truth? She didn't answer. She turned and walked back to her car. Before she drove off, she looked at me one last time. Not with anger. Not even with fear. With hate. Because she'd lost control. And for the first time, she realized I was never going to let her have it back. By Monday morning, the entire building had caught fire, figuratively speaking, but you could smell the smoke from a mile away. Emails flooded in. Some from strangers. Some from names I only half recognized from her stories. People she'd mentioned once in passing, now showing up like ghosts with confessions. They weren't apologies. These were people desperate to speak before the wave swallowed them too. The audit had gone wide. Fast. Someone inside her company, I still don't know who, started forwarding internal memos. Anonymous inboxes, encrypted zip files, call logs. They all told the same story. This had been going on for months. Maybe longer. Entire projects had been fake. Expense accounts drained. Hotel stays logged under client retention efforts were actually weekend escapes with rotating partners. It was deeper than I imagined. Some of the names on the spreadsheets were people I had dinner with, smiled with, hosted. They'd look me in the eye while their feet were pointed toward the next lie. At 11:03 a.m., Melissa, Brent's wife, called me. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of quiet you only hear from someone sitting in the ashes of their life. He admitted everything, she said. The trips. The meetings. Even some names I didn't ask for. He said your wife, she was the one who taught him how to hide the billing. I didn't know what to say. Then she asked, do you want to meet? I did. More than I realized. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. She was already there when I arrived. Red coat, hair pulled back, eyes locked on the window like she was trying to hypnotize the clouds. She didn't stand when I approached. Just nodded and said sit. We talked. Not about them, not at first. About the weirdness of it. The sheer absurdity. Like we'd been cast in a play where everyone else knew their lines except us. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a printed email. Found this in his deleted folder, she said. You should see it. It was a message from my wife to Brent. Sent a month ago. Subject line, next phase. In it, she outlined how she'd found a way to consolidate the billings so fewer eyes would be on them. She mentioned someone in IT who was sympathetic and willing to help ghost transactions from audits if they were careful. She called Brent her anchor, said she'd never felt this powerful before. That word hit me like a brick. Powerful. All this wasn't just about escape. It wasn't about emotional neglect or the cliches she spat out on my porch. It was about power. She liked the secrecy, the manipulation, the fact that she could walk through her office and know more than anyone in the room. She was playing chess with real lives. I sat back and asked Melissa, what are you going to do? She didn't blink. Take him for everything, and then I'll tell his mother. That'll hurt more. She smiled, not cruelly, but with surgical precision, like someone applying pressure to just the right nerve. I told her I'd keep feeding her anything I found. By 3 p.m., I had a meeting with her company's external legal team. They were moving fast now. Lawyers don't blink when numbers show up next to words like embezzlement, conspiracy, and code of ethics violations. Multiple terminations were already in motion, suspensions, even a federal inquiry on the horizon. And my wife, she was still in denial. She texted me that night, let's not involve lawyers. We can fix this. You and me. I didn't respond, because this wasn't about fixing a marriage anymore. This was about collapsing the tower she built on deceit, brick by brick, and letting her watch it fall. Tuesday arrived like a storm with no rain, just pressure. You could feel something pushing down on everything, as if the universe itself was holding its breath for what would happen next. That morning, I received a text from Danielle. 4 words. She's trying to settle. I called immediately. She answered on the first ring. No pleasantries. She met with HR last night. Unofficially. Offered to resign quietly if they'd keep her name out of any public statements or legal filings. I let that hang in the air. She's not stupid, Danielle added. She knows what's coming, but she still thinks she can control how it looks. That part made me laugh. Really laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from the stomach of someone who's seen too much too fast. She was still clinging to the illusion of control. Still trying to style her fall into something poetic. But this wasn't a story she was writing anymore. It was a report. And reports don't care how you feel. I thanked Danielle and hung up. Around noon, my lawyer called. Yeah, I have one now. He'd reviewed everything I sent over, the documents, the emails, the video, even the messages from Brent and the anonymous whistleblowers. His tone was professional, but there was something else behind it. Admiration? Shock? Maybe a little of both. You understand this could go beyond internal matters, right? He said. They're going to need to cooperate with authorities. This wasn't just unethical. It's criminal. I asked him what I should do. He paused, then said, keep doing what you're doing, but be careful. People are going to start protecting themselves. Your wife especially. She proved him right 3 hours later. I was sitting in Matt's kitchen, flipping through the flash drive files again, when the doorbell rang. It was her. Not dressed up. No fake smiles. Just jeans, a hoodie, and eyes that had stopped pretending to hold tears. I opened the door halfway. She didn't even ask to come in. Just said, they're going to ruin me. No, I said. You ruined you. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stared at her. You booked rentals under false names. You filed expense reports for fabricated events. You faked dates, forged sign-offs, and pulled other people into it. You meant every part of this. She folded her arms, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. What do you want from me? That was the moment it crystallized. The truth, the clarity, the final fracture that broke the last illusion I'd been holding on to. I want you to watch, I said. I want you to sit with the wreckage of everything you built and see it for what it is. She swallowed, blinked fast. I thought you loved me, she whispered. I did, I said. But you used that love like camouflage. You hid behind it while you played your games. And now I see exactly who you are. Her lip trembled, but I didn't give her the space to speak. Go home, I said, and don't contact me again. From now on, you deal with my lawyer. She didn't argue, just nodded slowly, turned, and walked away. And as I watched her go, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel grief. I felt clean, like I'd just walked out of a fire with nothing but my name and my spine intact. And I was ready for whatever came next. Wednesday, the air finally cracked. It started before sunrise. My phone buzzed with a dozen notifications, not from her, not from Brent, but from the legal counsel I'd been working with. They just received notice from federal compliance investigators. Subpoenas had been issued. The fraud had officially crossed the threshold from internal scandal to criminal inquiry. The phrase that stood out in the email, systemic abuse of resources with intent to defraud. My wife, now referred to in documents only as the respondent, was one of 4 people named. Brent was another. Their supervisor was listed as a complicit facilitator. The 4th was a wild card. Someone no one had seen coming, a mid-level finance analyst who, according to the paperwork, was responsible for creative ledger adjustments that made everything look clean on paper. It was bigger than any of us thought. By 10 a.m. it hit the media. Not the tabloids, not yet, but a business ethics blog broke the story. Widespread resource misuse exposed at company name redacted. They didn't name names, but the skeleton of the story was out there. Comments poured in. Anonymous tips. Former employees chiming in. Rumors about internal reward retreats being code for romantic trips disguised as leadership initiatives. I didn't expect what happened next. My inbox lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Coworkers, friends, even her cousin, the one who always seemed to know something but never said anything. The cousin's message was just 2 lines. We knew something was off. She always thought she was too smart to get caught. By noon, her company had gone silent. No news statements, no press, just a blackout. Danielle texted me once. It's done. She's officially terminated. Brent too. Their access is gone. They were escorted out this morning. I imagined it. My wife walking out of that building for the last time. Not to applause, not with grace, but in silence, with eyes on her back and a future she couldn't scheme her way out of. At 2:47 p.m., Melissa called me again. Her voice was stronger this time. You broke it open, she said. I wanted you to know that. I didn't do it to be a hero, I replied. I know, she said. You did it because they left us no choice. Then she asked, can I show you something? She sent me a video. It was surveillance footage. Her home security system. The timestamp was 2 nights ago. Brent standing outside their house. Drunk, disheveled, talking to himself, screaming her name, crying, slurring nonsense. Then he kicked over one of the flower pots she had on the porch and sat on the steps for 15 minutes with his head in his hands. She called the police. They removed him. I watched the footage again. I didn't feel satisfaction. What I felt was something colder. A numb recognition that this is what happens when you build your life on a lie. Eventually, gravity wins. At 5:13 p.m., I got the text I'd been half expecting, half dreading. From her. No words, just a picture. Her wedding ring, sitting on the kitchen counter. The same counter where I first saw that damn itinerary open on her laptop. And then one line, I hope it was worth it. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I deleted it. Because it was worth it. And I wasn't carrying her ring or her guilt 1 second longer. Thursday arrived like a quiet verdict, no dramatic bang of a gavel, just a final, weighty silence. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for attention because it is the attention. That morning, I met with the investigators face to face. Not at a police station, not in some courtroom, but a neutral office suite rented for depositions and compliance meetings. They were efficient, cold, clinical, everything that emotion is not, which oddly made it easier. I handed over everything. Every file, every folder, every backup. I even gave them the cloud sync link she'd forgotten to disable on one of her devices, the one that led to the hidden drive marked personal projects. It was a goldmine. Inside were drafts of emails between her and Brent, but also with others. Names I didn't know. Some were from different departments, even different branches. A few had internal nicknames, code language like lunchroom and 350. Investigators told me this wasn't just a romantic scandal or simple embezzlement anymore. This was organized manipulation of internal policy. They asked how I found it all. I told them the truth. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even looking for betrayal. I was just trying to understand what had happened to the person I once trusted most. And in the process, I tripped over a trapdoor and fell straight into the basement of their whole operation. After 2 hours, they thanked me. Told me they'd be in contact again. I shook their hands, stood up, and walked out feeling like I'd finally done something permanent. Not loud, not flashy, just final. That night, I got a call from her sister. Not to defend her, far from it. She's not staying with us anymore, she said. She left this morning. No forwarding address. She won't tell anyone where she's going. I didn't say anything. She said something about starting over. That she doesn't owe anyone explanations. I told her sister, calmly, that sounds about right. Then, for the first time in weeks, I left my phone inside, grabbed a jacket, and went for a walk. Not to clear my head. Not to replay conversations or decode her last message. Just to walk. As a man who had seen the truth and survived it. Halfway down the block, I stopped at a neighbor's yard. There was a little girl playing with sidewalk chalk. She'd drawn a house, a sun, a tree. Basic stuff. But she'd added one detail I couldn't look away from. A stick figure smiling, standing next to a broken heart. I watched her for a few seconds. She looked up and smiled at me. Is that you? She asked innocently, pointing to the figure. I smiled back. No, I said. But maybe it used to be. And I kept walking. Because for the first time since all of this began, I realized something. I was no longer trapped in her story. I was writing mine. Friday. Exactly 1 week since the day I walked through the front door and watched my life dislocate in real time. The sun came up like it always does, but the light hit differently. Not softer, not warmer, just real. No filters. No illusions. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was being pulled in 6 directions. No texts from her. No veiled threats. No unfinished conversations looping in my head. Just the sound of birds, a stiff cup of black coffee, and quiet. Then my lawyer called. I got the final statements, he said. 3 executive terminations, 2 resignations, and an internal compliance alert issued company-wide. They've already referred it to external regulators. And her? I asked. She's listed under the primary respondents section of the final report, with a formal record of fraud, breach of ethics, and conspiracy to misuse internal systems. They're not pressing charges yet, but her career's over, at least in that industry. I thanked him. We hung up. That was it. No confetti. No cinematic music swelling in the background. Just the cold, clean edge of closure. Later that afternoon, I stopped by my old house to collect the last of my things. My name is still on the mortgage for now, but she's not there anymore. She moved out 2 days ago, left behind a couple boxes, a burned-out candle, and 1 broken lamp by the entryway. No note, no final message, just absence like she was never really there to begin with. I walked through the place one last time, touched the doorframe where we'd measured each other's height jokingly during the pandemic, the dent in the wall from when we moved the couch too fast, the cabinet where she used to hide chocolate and pretend I didn't know. And I stood for a moment in the kitchen, staring at the exact spot where her laptop had sat open, itinerary loaded, weekend plan mapped out, her voice still echoing in my head. Don't make this a thing. But it was a thing. It was everything. And I faced it, unraveled it, laid it bare for the world to see. On my way out, I left my key on the counter. No dramatic gesture, just setting down the last thread. I didn't need to slam the door. I didn't even look back. Because when something rots at the root, you don't keep watering it. You plant something new. I drove to my brother's, told him I'd found a place. Short-term lease, nothing fancy. Just a quiet apartment with clean walls and no ghosts. He hugged me without a word, then shoved a beer into my hand. We didn't toast. We didn't need to. Later that night, as I sat alone on the balcony of my new place, I opened a blank document. No title. Just a blinking cursor. And I started typing, not to vent, not to accuse, but to record. Because someday, someone else might find themselves standing in front of their own open laptop, staring at betrayal dressed in casual fonts and carefully planned check-in times. And I want them to know you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And if you have the truth, hold it like a torch. Even if it burns everything down. Because better ashes than chains. This was the end of her story. And the first full page of mine.